Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Aisha Subarkash. The Middle East remains on a knife's edge after Iran's unprecedented attack on Israel over the weekend, calling it a retaliatory response for a strike on its consulate in Syria earlier this month. Iran launched hundreds of drones and missiles against Israel, sparking fears of a widening regional war. Turkiye, along with the US and other countries, flooded diplomatic back channels to ensure the attacks did not spiral out of control. With the help of the US, the UK and Jordan, Israel was able to intercept nearly all of the 300 rockets and drones launched by Iran. Israel's army chief vowed to respond to the attacks despite growing international calls for restraint. Washington told Israel it would not support a direct strike on Iran. During the run-up to the weekend attack, CIA Director William Burns reportedly asked Turkish intelligence chief Ibrahim Kalin for Ankara's help in mediating. Turkiye also reportedly passed on messages from the US to Iran during the height of the crisis. Tehran informed Ankara that its strikes on Israel had ended, but they would resume if it were attacked. And to discuss Iran's attack on Israel, joining me now from Amman is Zaid Eyadat. He is the director for Center for Strategic Studies at the University of Jordan. And from Melbourne, Australia, Shahram Akbarzadeh. He is a professor in Middle East and Central Asia Studies at Deakin University. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. So, Shahram, could you walk us through what's been happening over the last few days between Israel and Iran?
Well, what's been happening is that Israel decided to strike the Iranian consulate on 1st of April. Iran took about a couple of weeks to respond. In that time, Iran tried to get some form of international condemnation of this strike, but due to the negative vote by US, France, that the United Nations Security Council was not able to issue a condemnation of Israeli strike, which meant that Iran felt it had no other option but to strike back at Israel and retaliate.
So Zaid, where do you think is this headed? I mean, is it likely to ignite a broader conflict in the Middle East, or has it already died down?
Well, all possibilities are on the table. You can take off any of these options, but I think it is highly unlikely for a more escalatory cycle to take place in the region because of that. And in response to your first question, we know the situation, the context in the Middle East since October 7 and before October 7. Been actually a conflictual one, whereby every time we go into the edge between Iran and its proxies and Israel, and especially because of the Israel attack on Gaza and the war on Gaza. Now, it all depends on how the Israelis are going to respond, whether going to be a very calculated retaliation or a big step to more escalation in the region that will decide where the region is heading.
So, Shahram, some argue that given the relatively small scale of damage inflicted by the Iranian drones and missiles, the country hasn't used its advanced missiles. Is this really the case? And what did Iran want to achieve with these strings of attacks?
It may very well be the case that Iran has not utilized the full might of its drone and missile arsenal. That Iran is really sending a signal, especially given that Iran gave advance notice through intermediaries that it was going to strike back at Israel, to make sure that Israel and its allies were prepared to intercept Iranian drones and missiles. Iran doesn't wish to get involved in a conflict, a major conflict with Israel. From the very, it's the first time ever that Iran has actually conducted a strike against Israeli territory. So Iran has been trying to respond in a measured way, giving advance warning, and they are saying this is the end of it. We're not going to pursue this any further. They're hoping that Israel would not retaliate and not escalate.
So, Zaid, what do you make of the international community's reaction to the latest escalation? Is there a unified or a divided response to what's been happening between the two arch rivals?
Well, to the large extent, they're unified. I mean, if you take out China and Russia reactions, the world is condemning what Iran has done, launching attack into Israel, the first time in history, out of their territory, from Iran directly to Israel. And, the support that Israel got from its allies, especially the US, Britain, and France, and others in the region, including Jordan, of course, to deal with this attack. So in that sense, you can see, and I think they're going to be voting in the Security Council, and the G7 were discussing that and imposing more sanctions and on Iran, and taking steps that will punish Iran one way or another because of this attack. But I think the most important thing is, to understand the whole situation of who's trying to rewrite the rules of the game and the rules of deterrence. So to far extent, I think the Iranian action was a very well calculated, rational actions in a way that it speaks to this domestic audience and for domestic consumption, and also for proxies and allies, that Iran actually can do something. And this deterrence things that Israel can do whatever it wants to do anywhere should not be gone unpunished. And Iran say, we can do things, but we're actually not going to go to a full-scale war on conflict with Israel, which is trying to avoid since October 7 and before, because they're not ready for it now. And, they're focused on other things, and Iran is not going through a good time anyway. It's a very difficult, challenging times in Iran itself.
So Shahram, Zaid says that the world has given a unified response to this latest escalation, but how have Arab states, particularly Saudi Arabia and Jordan, responded to the Iranian attack? I mean, have they in a way sided with Israel?
Well, I don't think anyone is happy to see a regional conflict, and Jordan specifically was involved in shooting down some of those drones flying over its territory. And you can understand why Jordan would do that, because Jordan doesn't want to be seen as somehow aiding an Iranian assault on Israeli territory. But the main issue is that Iran could not afford to look weak. Iran could not afford to see its drone and missile technology fall by the wayside, because they are supposed to act as a deterrent. And if Iran did not use its drone and missile technology, they would have been useless completely. So Iran had to respond. But Iran responded, as your previous speaker also mentioned, in a very measured way, and really hoping that Netanyahu accepts that this is a win-win situation. Iran had to respond. It used its drone and missile technology in a way that Israel and its allies could shoot them down and minimize any damage to Israel. So it's a win-win situation for both.
So, Zaid, what kind of a role did Turkey play in keeping this latest crisis from spiraling out of control?
Before I answer this, I have just to comment something on Jordan.
Sure.
I'm in Jordan, and Jordan done what they done, not because they want to look like they are aiding Iran in attacking Israel. No, there was a violation of Jordan's sovereignty by these drones and missiles going through Jordan spaces. So Jordan warned that if there's any of these drones or missiles going through Jordan, Jordan will take steps in order to protect Jordan's sovereignty and Jordanian lands and Jordanians. And exactly they did what they promised to do and what they said they're going to do.
But before that, if I could get back to your first answer, so has this move by Jordan put the country under Iran's radar?
Well, I think Jordan been under Iran radar for a while now. It's nothing new, and it's not new news in Jordan since October 7 and before. And Jordanians start to feeling that Iranian might be actually a serious threat to Jordan's security. Jordan been in a war in its northern border with the smuggling of weapons and drugs that is supported and assisted by militia. And these militia are supported by Hezbollah, Iran's proxies, and Syria. So Iran actually been doing some harm to
nothing
Jordan
new.
for so long.
So for Turkey's role, because according to Reuters, Iran reportedly told Turkey about the attack before it happened, and the U.S. asked Turkey to relay a message to Iran that the attack had to be within limits. So what unique position is in Ankara that it can relay messages between Tehran and Washington amid this escalation?
I think that's a natural role for Turkey. Turkey is a major regional power. It has its strategic positions in the region, its relations with NATO and the West, and also its proximity to Iran and Russia. And of course, it is a special relations to the Middle East and Arab countries. So in that sense, I think, this is a natural, normal positions for Turkey to be a major player, regional player, to try to mediate and prevent that kind of conflict that will impact Turkey's strategic interests in the region, and of course, presenting Turkey as a mediator between regional powers and international and regional powers.
So, Shahram, Turkey has repeatedly called on Iran to not to escalate tensions with Israel further. How much influence does Ankara have on Tehran, since the relations between Turkey and Israel aren't in their best shape?
I don't think any of the regional countries have much influence over Iran. Of course, Iranian authorities do listen, and they do try to take note of what's being said in the region, whether it's Turkiye, whether it's Qatar. But at the end of the day, the authorities in Tehran decide what's best for the regime, the ruling regime. They have decided that they're going to look weak if they don't respond. Mm-hmm. They felt obligated to respond. And they also feel that escalating this any further could put the future of the regime as a whole in danger. Let's not forget that Iran only 2 years ago put down a major national movement, national revolution basically, against the regime. And that tells me that tensions are very high in the country, and any regional escalation or confrontation between Iran and Israel, Iran and the United States, could really open a Pandora's box within the country.
Mm-hmm. So, Zaid, what's your take on U.S. President Biden's warning to Netanyahu, in which he made it clear that the United States will not participate in any offensive action against Iran? In a way, have these Iranian strikes exposed Israel's need to others to defend itself, and that it's not for free to choose to how to strike?
I think it's bigger than that. So Americans been trying to avoid any regional conflict and expansion of the war in Gaza to the regional conflict, because it's anti-American interest, as you know. And, American strategy was about de-escalation till October 7 happened. Mm-hmm. And there was a total different trajectory in the region whereby the Saudis and the Israelis were about to sign their normalization treaty, and it didn't work. So the Americans' interest in the region is to escalate as much as they can. And also they wanted to say that Israel's security is a priority for the Americans and its allies, and also showing the regional and international power, including China and Russia, that America can actually coordinate its defensive system in the region in a way that is very effective. And I think they did show that to the Iranians, to the Russians, and the Chinese in a very high-level, professional way. And I have to say, whether the Americans will have an influence over Netanyahu and Israel in what to do in the aftermath of the Iranian attacks on Israel, I think they do have leverage over Israel to tame the kind of reaction and the timing of that reaction. I just need to add one thing. It's very important also to see.
Very quickly, please.
I will do it very quickly. This is a very important positive moment for Israel, the Iranian attacks on them. 2 weeks ago, Israel was under a huge, serious criticism from international, including Americans themselves, who've been calling for, suspending of their military support to Israel. Now, the Americans, Europeans, and all other parties are supporting Israel and defending itself against Iran. And I think Israel will take advantage of that to rebuild its international image and to rebuild its regional allies.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.